Hi guys, welcome to the Scar Thumb Podcast. It's this one's going to be all about Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Going over this developer interview, and I think this helps give you a better appreciation for what they were trying to do with this game. And all the thought that went into it, the decisions they made. It's all really good stuff. I will have a few clips from. Good morning, Deborah. A few clips from the game itself mixed in, but we will be covering the interview. I think it helps show, again, all the thought and care that went into this game. That really shows why Nintendo makes such high quality games. So let's get into it. And this is, if you can see on the screen, you can see this was an interview by Nintendo. Features Eiji Onuma, Tomio Sano, Satoshi Terada. These are Eiji Aonuma has been a developer working. He's the entertaining and planning development division. He's been around forever. He's been working on Legend of Zelda for a long, long time. He's kind of like he's not the father, that's Shigeru Miyamoto, but he's been in charge of Zelda, sort of like the head man on Zelda for a long time. The Tomi Asano is a director for the game. She's works kind of like as a liaison between Nintendo and Grezzo. And Satoshi Terada here is the director of Grezzo. They've done a lot of remakes. They did the remake for Ocarina of Time. They did, most notably, the remake of Link's Awakening. That was on the Switch. That has the very similar art style to this, but they've done Four Swords ports for the DS. They've done a lot of remakes for the Legend of Zelda. So they've worked on a lot of Legend of Zelda games. They have the bona fides to actually go in and help work on this stuff. It's not like this was like, hey, this is our first Zelda game. Let's do it. They've been porting over the classics for quite a while. Hey, good to see you, Jack, Deborah, Silver Bishop, X Runner. Good to see you guys. Let's get into the interview. So, this is AG here. I've always wanted to establish a 2D top-down Legend of Zelda series that's separated from the 3D entries, like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We wanted to cherish that kind of diversity in the Legend of Zelda series. Legend of Zelda's Link's Awakening on Nintendo Switch, which we developed with Grezzo, had become our new approach in terms of graphics and gameplay feel. Grezzo had established an excellent way of reviving the top-down Legend of Zelda experience for a modern era. So this is kind of interesting when he says this, that he wanted this to be the 2D top-down Zelda, which has always been my favorite. Link to the Past, my favorite Legend of Zelda game. The idea that, like, look, we don't want to stop 2D Zelda. We want, 3D Zelda to be its own thing. We want 2D Zelda to be its own thing. It has a diversity in gameplay from the two, and we want that to be, so we want it to be its own thing, and and hopefully it will be, considering I think how well this game ended up. Hopefully Grezzo will continue to make. I wouldn't be surprised if Grezzo got bought out by Nintendo or like acquired by Nintendo to work on this stuff exclusively, but we'll see what happens. Nintendo's very conservative with its money, but I think they've done a really good job, so they may want to make sure they're working just for them. But this was really nice to see the fact that, it's been a while since we had a 2D Zelda, like a brand new one. I think, if I'm not right, A Link Between Two Worlds was the last mainline 2D top-down Zelda game that was brand new and not a remake. So this is good to see that they've like, hey, we found our look for the Switch, the modern era Legend of Zelda, which I love these graphics. I mean, you can see right here This just looks. I think this looks amazing. Like if you wanted to bring 16-bit style of graphics, it's not super high fidelity, super detailed. This would be it. Just beautiful scene. You can see the mountains in the background. You can see all sorts of details. There was actually right here. When I was like looking at this, doing the video for it, you can notice in the bottom left corner there's a door with a cracked door here that you can blow up. I'm like, wait, I didn't notice that before. I don't think I've gotten that yet. So I had to go. I went in the actual game and then blew this door up. Like, oh, that's a secret. They're showing me secrets here in this opening trailer. And then you got Hyrule. You can see the Goron village with the mountain Eldin. I believe it's sort of like Lanriun. And there's so many callbacks to the Link to the Past in this game. Just it delights me, since Link to the Past is my favorite game, to see all these little callbacks to it in this game. And this is so we asked Grezzo if you were to make the next new game. And this is sort of going on the development of Link Echoes of Wisdom here. If you were to make a next new game, what kind of game would it be? So they're actually asking Grezzo for their input on this. It was a big event for Grezzo. We came up with so many ideas that it took us 3 days to go over and review them. So this is a studio that really is really into it. Since it was Legend of Zelda project, everyone worked hard on the proposal and presented them in front of Ainuma-san with pounding hearts. This is a team, they're outsourcing it, but at the same time, these people have the respect for the franchise. They've done enough work on the remakes to really know what they're doing. And this is why it worked so well. They had so much love for the franchise. Even though they didn't brainstorm together or anything like that, surprisingly, a number of similar ideas were proposed, but that's not a bad thing at all. I think everyone had a common idea of something they wanted to do in the game. This is Tomio Sano here. From there, we decided to move forward with a focus on copy and paste gameplay, and gameplay that combines top-down view and side view. Hey, good morning, Nuke. Good to see you. And this is, Legend. This is the normal top-down, little like sneaking part. Very common. I love the music here, too. It just fits so well. And this is the side view, which is common in Link's Awakening. They did that quite a bit, which, they did the remake for. They're just swimming around. There is going to be some slight spoilers. Not a lot. But... I guess this is just using footage from it, so you might see something you haven't seen. These were the two basic elements, and from there I asked them to think of ways to add freedom. This is kind of interesting that he puts a big emphasis on freedom. Having worked on games in the Legend of Zelda series over the years, we started to feel that fans may not continue to play this franchise unless they can think independently and try various things freely on their own. Well, I can't remember the entire presentation. I don't put major plot stories in it, but you might see, if you're not past the third dungeon, you may see some stuff that you haven't seen yet. So this is this kind of shows that this was interesting when I read this, because they're really thinking about if we just do the same thing over and over again, people may not like it. You need to keep the formula fresh. So I'm not. So they just weren't ready to rest on their laurels and say yeah, people would just want a Legend of Zelda game, which, in my opinion, I would just want a regular Legend of Zelda game. I don't necessarily need something super new, but if you're gonna do the same kind of Hyrule, I suppose you do need some gimmicks in there to kind of keep it fresh. The old idea that you give them the same thing but slightly different, and then they'll enjoy it, because when you when you think of Legend of Zelda, really, like, they've established the 3D Zelda, they've established the 2D Zelda. It's got to be one of those two things. And if it's dramatically different, then you're like, what the heck is this? We were exploring a few different ways to play the game in parallel. One approach, Link could copy and paste various objects, such as doors, candlesticks, to create their original dungeons. During this exploration phase, this idea was called an edit dungeon because players could create their own Legend of Zelda gameplay. This is very... We could have had a Legend of the Zelda sort of Mario Maker type of game. At one point, this was something being considered, where you make your own dungeons, like, all right, here, go play this dungeon and see how you like it. Which, I don't know, would you play a Legend of Zelda Mario Maker style game? That sounds pretty cool, in my opinion. But I'm not sure. I really like this game too, though. So I like this. Mario Maker is a good game too. Don't get me wrong. I like it. It's fun in its own way. But I'm glad we got this game instead of the Legend of Zelda Maker. It's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. So don't get me wrong. I kind of wish we'd also get that too. Maybe that could be another game, another spin-off that they make of this game, where you make your own stuff. So I started. This is Anuma-san here. I started thinking that, well, it's fun to create your own dungeon and let other people play it. It's also not so bad to place items that can be copied and pasted in the game field and create gameplay where they could be used to fight enemies. This was the beginning of the gameplay using echoes. So it didn't start as... it didn't start as echoes where they just came up with that idea like, oh yeah, we'll copy and paste stuff and we'll make this happen. We got this idea didn't start. It sort of evolved where they original, like Reza was like, hey, let's do some copy and paste like dungeon style. Link will go in and will create his own dungeon. Then another player could play this edit dungeon, and that'd be really cool. And then Anuma-san was like, what if we kind of made this into a gameplay mechanic where you kind of use it in a normal, more traditional style Zelda game? And this is the echoes here, where you can learn. Got your Zol echo here. And then use it to fight. I love the way they shake at each other and then smash into each other. This time the Zol... the animations, by the way, whoever did the animation team is just phenomenal. Like all these things have so much character in it. When you look at the way, like they're like these pudgy little like slimes, and the way they sort of shake and then they jump at each other, and then they shake and jump. They try so hard. That just again, it's phenomenal. It's just the quality that Nintendo puts out. We struggle with the idea of echoes. Since the gameplay involves copy and pasting things you find in the game field, they have to be something that can both help and hinder you. So this is like they're trying to balance out like what echoes could be. They also need to work both in a top-down and side view perspective. You don't always think like... There's a lot of like when they decided to go with the echo gameplay. There's a lot of things that they had to do to really make it work, because you could use basically like echoes almost anywhere. And this is, this is called a plat boom. Right now I'm trying to figure out how to kill it, because I'm pretty sure it's an echo that I could use. It almost seems like a... In this game, it's funny because stuff you'd normally think would be just a hazard, a stage hazard, is a usable echo. And eventually I come up with a great idea just to kill it with my sword. It looks it's like a fairly normal 2D, like thwomp type enemy. And then here it is in 3D. So they actually know how to consider, how thick is this? Is it going to look like in 3D? It looks perfectly normal in 2D. I think it's been in 2D before, but never in a 3D space. And you lift it up, and that's how it looks. So you could use it just to get up, place it in 3D as well. Here's Anuma-san again. When you're fighting an enemy, it's advantageous for them to be weak. But if you want to make them your ally, you prefer if they put up more of a fight. But if you recruit one that's too strong, they'd be able to defeat enemies on their own, making other echoes seem inferior. So this is where they have to like balance out. Like, how do we balance out echoes? Because like give you an echo where it's like some super strong knight. Like, what's going to stop you from just using that all the time and killing everything on its own? There's a lot of thought that had to be put into this. Then, even if we manage to fight, even if we manage to find the right balance between enemy and ally, between top-down and side view, we also need to consider all the different places where players might use these echoes. So they had to like think about this. Like, what if they use this echo in this place? Like, what happens if you beat a monster in the snowy mountains and they create an echo of it in a volcano? It was a lot of work to ensure that things work consistently and that the gameplay wouldn't fall apart if players used an echo, an area different from the ones they found it. And here's an Ig soul, a sort of variant of a regular soul. And I love the fact that if you use it in grassy areas, it sets it on fire. And speaking of bait, here's extra crispy right here. The sound design is phenomenal. The stuff burning, the way the fire spreads is super cool. You can just burn fields of grass to the ground. Just a fun thing to do. And then here, if you use it in water, it doesn't die immediately. They could have had that happen, but now it's just a regular. It's a little candle that goes out, and you throw it out. It just sort of hangs out, starts walking around, and then it's a little wick flame lights up again. So they did this with several other things too. It's just cool to see that there are so many echoes at your disposal. We made sure to give each one specific characteristics so that players would remember what each one does. And I think they did a kind of like good job. I was just seeing like there's a fire slug echo, and it specifically as it slowly moves, it leaves a trail of fire behind it. And you kind of think, with a slug, it leaves that sort of trail of slime. There's a trail of fire, or this sort of the night echo, which is kind of, I think they're called dark nuts. They are armored. They're slow, but things with like wooden clubs and stuff, just bounce off them. Certain like wooden stuff or like lighter attacks just bounce off their armor. So you kind of remember that, and you have to find stuff that isn't affected by. So like if you have like an enemy with a club, you could just send him out, and it'll just deflect all of its attacks and attack them in turn. Or there was a dang, I just had an example and I lost it. There are certain things like with like the slug, like sometimes you can drown people with water. Well, if you try that on the slug, the water just evaporates. So with fire, you can't use it like that. Or shoot, I had an example on top of my head, but I can't remember those fire slugs I was talking about. Like if a normal melee enemy tries to attack it, they get set on fire and take damage. But if there's like a little like rock dude, and if you use the rock dude, I guess slight spoilers for the volcano area, but he attacks them. He can attack him. He doesn't get set on fire because it's made of rock. So he's immune. Or like there's a little like water version of the soul, and if something tries to attack it with fire, it just deflects it. It doesn't affect it at all. So it kind of gives you. There's a lot of thought that went into how each element and each area would affect one another, like how these echoes interacted. There's a lot of work clearly that was done to make sure that they interacted in sort of fun and creative ways. Because in a lot of ways, the fun of this game is the sort of creativity that you can use to decide what echo could do which. Having freedom to solve puzzles by yourself is a key feature of Legend of Zelda games, but having too much freedom could leave you feeling stumped. We made a conscious effort to clearly define the functions of each echo so that players understand how and where they should be used. So this is just Sano-san kind of talking a bit, just they had to give like a clear idea of what each echo did. That way people could remember, like have an idea, like, all right, here's something that, here's, there's stuff rolling at me, and they're seem pretty heavy, but maybe I'll put a boulder in place. Or like there was like a steam vent that like shot up steam and you couldn't get down it. But obviously if you put a boulder there, it's a heavy, it blocks that vent and it allows you to go down. So it's kind of like an easy idea. The fact that they made the boulder so heavy looking gives you a really good idea. All right, this would weigh it down, and I could use that to get down there. There's a lot of stuff like that that's pretty not self-explanatory, but intuitive. I'll say intuitive. Princess Zelda doesn't have a way of attacking initially. So there was a tendency, and this is kind of later in the conversation, so there was a tendency for playing play to use the echoes to just end up being a situation where you watch the thing copied do the work. So we asked Grezzo to adjust it so that players would feel an immediate sense of accomplishment. Like, I did it. For example, if you make an echo of a monster, that echo would immediately attack an enemy, just like you swinging a sword. And this was one of the things that I was worried about when I first saw Echoes of Wisdom. I'm like, is it going to be like you summon it and then you wait for enemies to attack it? Is that going to be boring? Because it seemed like that would be one of the biggest flaws of this style of gameplay with Echoes. So they did think of that. This was something that they definitely considered, and then they adjusted for, as I'll show you here. So you have these club Borins, and if you see, they're one of my favorite things to use, since they're fairly cheap. He's fighting this, I forget what those zombies are called, but as you summon them, they immediately jump and attack. It's kind of a cool, satisfying attack, so it's almost like you're almost like casting a spell. These club strikes. So it's an immediate effect that helps make the gameplay stay fast-paced. And same thing with these little armadillos, Kidromadillo. The second you summon them, they roll at the enemy, or whatever object you want them to roll at. It's like you're immediately casting a rolling armadillo at people. And that helps keep the gameplay faster paced. It's not like super fast paced, but it definitely makes it much more satisfying to play with Echoes when it has an immediate effect. At the beginning, this is more about the restrictions of the game, which this game is super open. At the beginning of the game's development, we were thinking a lot about restrictions on gameplay, assuming that certain things would definitely break the game mechanics or stop the game from working properly. We had ideas like being limited to using only 20 echoes in a dungeon. But it would have been frustrating for players if they couldn't use a solution that worked in a previous situation. So one way we decided to scrap that approach and not impose any restrictions at all. This was something that I was considering, like if you have so many echoes, where you can just get a ton of different echoes, they do a ton of different stuff, like how do you even make a puzzle, with a proper solution? And I guess their eventual idea was, why have solutions? Why have like one single solution to it? Why not just allow, like, if they could do it, if they could do it and it works, then it's a solution. It's a really open-ended way to do these puzzles. But I think it makes it even more satisfying that way, where you can think of like 10 different solutions to solve this puzzle. Really allows creativity. This was a very, very telling from Ainuma-san about kind of some of the old ways they used to do gaming. I used to believe the theory behind games was that being set loose from restraints gives a feeling of freedom and growth. That's why old games were designed to slowly lift the restrictions that were there at the start. So if you look at this and you think about like the old Zelda games or the old Metroid games, where you could basically start with nothing. And then you get the missiles, you get the bombs, you get the screw attack, the space jump, all these areas that were previously cut off from you, you can now go to, which it does give a feeling of freedom and growth. Like as you create more stuff, all right, now I can get to this area, and I've unlocked this dungeon. And the same thing with Zelda, where like you got the gloves eventually, and you could lift stuff that was in your way. You got like the flippers, and you could swim to a different area. A lot of things started opening up, and that does kind of give you the feeling of growth. But I don't know if that's a false sense of of growth or not. But it does work. Thematically it works as well. Where like all right, I've got more tools and more tools, and I'm building it up, and eventually I'll get the final fight where I'm fully decked out. You fight the final boss. You're like a badass. You're all geared up, and you're good to go. And then it's a big fight at the end. It still works, but it's interesting that to see him talk about the kind of like old theory of doing things and deciding, hey, this is pretty good too. The Echoes gameplay could find the face of this theory at times. Gradually, we began removing those restrictions. Over time, most of the restrictions we thought were necessary at the start of development were no longer needed. In this, they're talking about this phrase, being mischievous, was one of the key phrases they put out when they started making the game. This sort of like direction, because he's just, he's not watching over everybody's shoulder while they're developing this game. The team is a very important part of it, and the fact that they have to understand like what they're looking for, what this game's about is really important. So they came up with this phrase, being mischievous, to kind of give the programmers, the artists, I guess especially the programmers that were working on the gameplay mechanics, this idea of like being mischievous, like this is the direction you should go in. That way they kind of built it with that in mind. We came up with this key phrase because we wanted to do some things that were really out there. For example, if you rolled something like a spike roller along the ground, that's a lot of work because it can hit all kinds of things. But if we didn't allow for this possibility, it wouldn't be fun. This is them like really going the extra mile here to make this game just super cool. They won't even called these kind of things being mischievous. And here is said spike roller, and I really like this Echo too because it's super wide. When you use it in 2D, it's pretty easy because you just cast it and it goes. But when you use it in 3D, it becomes super wide and really clunky to use, but really fun, as it can cut a bunch of grass really easy, and it can cover a wide distance. And I'm trying to use it here, and you have to have room to summon it. So I'm trying to think, like, how do I even get it to work? And I do like, it's really satisfying to summon because it's like giant log. I cast giant spike log at my enemy, and they just die. I'm being mischievous here. Just cast it over and over again. Boom, boom, boom. Just beat him to death with a giant spiked log. Super fun. And that's the fun that comes out of doing this type of game. Boom. And then just, casting on the spikes. So there's a lot of... I wanted to point out the other thing about the spike log. It's kind of weird because most echoes can't hurt you. But... let me scrub. Most echoes can't hurt you. But this can. And I have hurt myself quite a lot trying to use a spiked roller. Comes back and hits you. So it is a lot of clunky to use. Echoes will last until basically forever, until I think if you go off screen far enough they disappear. And if you only have like so many of these sort of like echo points to use, so once you use something that goes over the limit of echo points, that will disappear. Like you can only have one spiked roller on the field at a time because it costs 4 echo points, and you only have 4 echo points. Is the max that I have at the time. So the second I cast another one, the other one disappears, essentially. Boom. There were 3 rules here. To be able to pace things however, whenever, wherever, and whenever. Sorry, being able to pace things however, wherever, and whenever you like. Make it possible to complete puzzles using things that aren't there. So this was the sort of 2 of the directives where, like, you could place the echo wherever you like. Just if they could do it, if it'll fit there, let them do it. That's going to be part of the fun. And then, you have to be able to complete the puzzle with stuff, using stuff that isn't there. So, like, stuff that isn't in the room. Normally in a traditional, like, Zelda game, you walk into a room, there's a puzzle there, you look around, you see, like, all right, what's there? Is this, statue pushable? You've got, like, several, like, of these squares laid out. Do I need to push one into place, and that will complete the puzzle? There's a switch. What's in the room for me to grab and put on that switch? But with this, you can make so many different things. We have to think of puzzles that you could basically summon a ton of different stuff and still be possible to complete the puzzle. So in a lot of ways, I think a lot of the puzzling in this game is basically just reaching different areas and defeating certain enemies. In a lot of ways, it's almost more focused on combat than a traditional Zelda, because you have so many different ways. So kind of defeating enemies is almost a puzzle in itself with the way the ecosystem worked out. And then the third, being able to find uses for echoes that are so ingenious that it feels like cheating, should be part of what makes this game fun. And they did a really good job of this. They're just looking at, say, here's Ainuma-san. It's like finding a secret trick in the game, just like the old days. And if this kind of solution isn't allowed, that it's not fun. I'm always really happy when I manage to solve something in an unexpected ways. Doing something where I'm not sure if it's even okay to do it like that. I guess this ties in with the idea of being mischievous. And they use the example, there was a famous puzzle in Breath of the Wild where a ball drops down and you have to go through like a little like maze. You guide the ball through a little maze by tilting your controller using the gyro and get it through the maze. But people figured out you could just flip the entire puzzle over, and the bottom of it is super smooth, and you just roll the ball over and complete it that way super quickly. Oh, and then here's some ideas like cheating. One of the things I found, if you summon a bed and then summon these tornado echoes, it launches you in the air super high. You get a ton of lift, and you could reach areas that were almost impossible to reach just using echoes, using this trick. And here's again me showing this sick. This almost feels like cheating. You go so high. And then when you jump off it, you can cover a ton of distance too. Like huge gaps that are normal, like just stacking echoes like beds or tables or boulders. You could never reach that height. But with this tech, you can. And it really feels like cheating. Here's another example. These boars are super tough. You could fight them with echoes. You could have like a big scrum with a bunch of your echoes fighting these guys. One's got a shielded club, other's a boomerang. You could do that, and they'll take a lot of hits to fight. But you also cheat and drop them in water and drown them. They just instantly die when you place them in water, and boom. It's that easy. Oh, you're a super tough enemy? Nah, I'll just drown you. How about that? And then so they allow that kind of stuff, and it does feel like cheating in a way. Just big fight with a bunch of like super high level enemies. Nah, I'll just drown you. Just call me Ted Kennedy, because I'm drowned in these bitches. And getting that treasure here. Boom. We were initially thinking that Link would be so this is like more. They shifted away from gameplay, and now they're talking more about Zelda as a protagonist. And this was something that was done, very mindfully. So you could see this in like a lot of modern games, especially nowadays. They want to throw in women as protagonists. They definitely want to put it into their series. We saw recently that when that Shadows of Tsushima or whatever it's called had a sequel, which I can't pronounce, Shadows of whatever, and it stars a woman. You had Star Wars Outlaws as a woman as a protagonist. It's very popular to throw in women as your main protagonist now. It's very trendy. And then you also had, Princess Peach's just had her own showdown or showtime or whatever it's called. But this Legend of Zelda, making her as a protagonist wasn't even considered at first. So we're kind of going into this. Let me go back. We're initially thinking that Link would be the protagonist. But when we focused on gameplay using echoes and had Link copy and pasting things into the game field, the sword and shield got in the way. If you have a sword and shield, you can just fight using those. There's no need to rely on monsters' powers, right? So we thought, what if players could only use echoes at first in order to understand the gameplay? And then as the game progressed, like you'd lose a sword and shield, and then you have to fight with echoes, and then eventually you get them back. And then as the game progressed, they get the sword and shield. But even then, we thought that once they got the sword and shield, they would stop using echoes. And in a way, it's true, because if you just attack them directly, there's less hassle than going to the menu and choosing an echo or thinking about, which echo should I use? You know what? I'm just going to slash with my sword and like annihilate it with a bunch of arrows. So that does kind of get in the way. And you could almost say that's maybe one of the flaws of, not really even a flaw, but for some people I could understand them not liking the fact that you have to go into a menu, choose an echo. If you just want a direct combat, that would kind of get in the way. But I think this is fun because of the echoes. And it definitely makes it different. And here is just, let's fight. So this is just how easy it is to fight with Link. This is just direct. Boom. I come in, I fight it, I shoot my arrows. You have infinite arrows in this mode because they didn't want to make that a big mechanic. It just goes in and does it. And then here's sword fighter mode here. Just direct combat. So in a way, it is really quick and easy just to pop that. Of course, they did a really good job with the balance of sword fighter mode. When you're using in the shadow, the still world, a lot of these triangle pieces drop, so you get a lot of energy. But if you try and use it out in the outer world, it is very difficult. You run out of this meter very quickly. So those little tri pieces, little blue pieces, just instantly refilled my gauge. So it's something you can only use in short bursts, and especially really just in the still world. So they limited it because I think it would kind of take away from the echo gameplay. It competes too much with it. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of like the easiest simple, direct solution to deal with a monster. Kind of forcing players to think, like, hey, which echo would be best in this situation, in some ways could be more frustrating. It could take longer. So there is a bit of a risk of frustrating the player, but really kind of finding the solution here, it ends up being a lot more satisfying than just running up and hitting it. What monster would best take out that sort of moblin with a spear? Because you could go with an armored guy, you could go with like a horde of Octoroks, you could go with some boomerang hoglins, you could try and blow it off the cliff with a sort of like wind enemy. Now there's tons of solutions, and it uses so much mental power that it could be a little bit frustrating. But ultimately, like, finding a fun solution or a workable solution is satisfying. You got to be able to give players that sort of feeling of sometimes you have to frustrate them a bit to give them that feeling of accomplishment. A lot of times, games are afraid to do that. They're too easy. They're afraid to. I mean, I probably shouldn't say the game is too easy because this game is very easy. It's a Nintendo game, but the fact that you can come up with a lot of different solutions kind of adds a level, not a difficulty, but a fun and accomplishment that you've thought of that solution. If that's the case, talking again about Zelda. If that's the case, it must be someone who doesn't fight with a sword and shield, right? Who in this series would be a good fit for these powers and bring their insight to them? Well, that would be Princess Zelda. So that throwing Zelda into it had nothing to do with like, wow, we need a woman. It's a woman's time. That'll be this will get us a lot of DEI bucks, having Zelda. Put in Princess Zelda. So, I mean, Zelda has been requested. Over the years, we've been working on Legend of Zelda series. Many people have often asked, will Princess Zelda ever be the protagonist? Because a lot of people do like Princess Zelda. She's a beautiful princess. She's been part of the series forever. Like, when is she going to get, a spin-off or something like this? Will Princess Zelda ever be the protagonist? And said, I'd like to play as Princess Zelda. I've always thought, of course, as long as it makes sense in the game and does justice to her as a character to be the protagonist. So it can just be like, hey, we'll throw her in. She's Zelda with a skirt, I had been trying in vain to figure out what would really do justice to her. But when I saw the team struggling to identify the ideal protagonist for this game, I thought, this is exactly the game for her. So just sort of like, it's serendipity that it worked out. And this is sort of Princess Zelda, starting out, she's captured in the crystal, traditionally. She's running away. See, I like the expression, she's scared expression on her face. Running away from this rift. Like, running away, runs out, trips. She's like, oh no, I'm going to get eaten. And then she's sort of saved by serendipity. Fate, what's in the still world, kind of, and then here she's, it's like kind of like the low point for her. She's stuck in the dungeon. Her imposter of her father has thrown her in the dungeon here. Kind of sad. This mysterious kind of creature shows up. He was imprisoned by Ganon and kind of saved by Link as well. And he followed her. Just like she's the only one that can see him at first. Oh, my bad. The king and the other two seem weird. There's like talking like the king wants to execute her. The fake king wants to execute her because she could potentially ruin their plans. Nice, she's really, I love the sort of sad expression she has. I'll see you later, Bishop. Thanks for stopping by. She's sad. I kind of like how, like I said, this is like kind of like the low point for a character. Her father's been captured. Now there's imposters. She's going to be locked in a jail cell, going to be executed as a criminal for creating the rifts. Even the people that, loved her. I'm going to save you. Oh, that was funny. Oh, you can't go through bars. Yeah, that's right. The Triad character's kind of funny because he doesn't really understand a lot of human interactions. And then she gets the rod, her source of power. Same color as Try. I was showing this off. I like this. I really like the animations, the way she like looks around kind of nervously, holding the rod, back in sort of like a defensive posture. The fact that they still made her show like fear and kind of anxiety when faced with danger, I think was a really good touch. While someone like Link would kind of be more braver, you saw him at the beginning where he sort of you'll see it where he just sort of throws off his cloak ready to fight, Ganon, face it head on. Zelda, they still show a bit of vulnerability and nervousness with her that again with Western developers you just wouldn't see that anymore because female characters in Western games have to act super masculine. Having sort of femininity and vulnerability is seen as weak, and you can't show women as weak in modern media. Let's see. This is where Tri is kind of explaining that it was his job to mend the rifts. And you'll see them talk about, like, the rifts was sort of like a way to give Zelda a reason to fight. They put a lot of effort into this. And then she's drowning. I love the animation of her flailing. It's super cute. All the animations are really cute. And then everything goes dark. Well, it's kind of funny that Link's Awakening starts as with Link waking up on a beach, and then you have her starting her adventure by waking up on a beach. Kind of interesting. Kind of parallels here. That's kind of nice. So they did a lot of work to make sure Zelda fit into this, rather than it being Link. That being said, we had a lot of trouble deciding Princess Zelda's outfit. For example, she's going on an adventure. So they even thought about the outfit. They put a lot of thought into just that. This is how much effort they put into their characters. Since she's going on an adventure, we did consider giving her some more typical adventuring clothing. And we wondered if it looked strange to have such an outfit ready, as if it was already known that she'd be leaving from the get-go. We tried looking for a suitable outfit for Princess Zelda from previous games as well. And then, they're sort of talking about, I kind of skipped over some thought. Also, we thought it'd be touching that if Princess Zelda inherited the hood that Link wore. One of the themes for Princess Zelda this time was to find Link. So we thought that having her wear this hood would be a good reminder of her purpose to find him. That's kind of really a nice thought. And so here's her breaking the glass. Breaks free. And there's Tri. Kind of imprisoned there too. So this is where she finds it. The swordsman's cloak. So she's kind of like inheriting the job. This is her escaping from Hyrule Castle. She needs a disguise. So this is just another cute part where she has to hide behind a statue to change. Again, those subtle little things. Like a woman wouldn't, a girl would worry about that kind of stuff, while a man, not so much. It kind of smells like a musty dresser. Poor Impa. He's giving you these clothes and you're worried about the smell. Come on, Zelda. First, it was difficult to find a motive to send Princess Zelda on an adventure. In Link's case, he's destined to be a hero. So they're still keeping this dynamic between the masculine and the feminine. Where it's if it's Link, he's a hero. He's supposed to be a hero. He's destined. So if there are monsters, he just sets out on the journey to defeat them. And that makes sense. So it's totally cool that, Link would go out and fight monsters. Duh. But in the case of Princess Zelda, she's royalty. We needed to carefully craft the setting of why she really needs to leave her castle when there are people around her who can fight. The more we thought about it, the harder it was to come up with a convincing reason for Princess Zelda to leave for an adventure. Kind of laughs. Just having monsters roaming around Hyrule wouldn't be enough to motivate Princess Zelda to directly fight them. We tried brainstorming all sorts of ideas what kind of situation would necessitate the princess take matters into her own hands. One staff member, as if Princess Zelda were his own child, said, "We can't send the princess on an adventure yet. I'd go instead under these circumstances." And then it's like they laugh. And so this is just an idea of like the fact that they really treated her as a princess. It wasn't where like I just don't imagine other, especially again Western developers would actually treat Zelda with this kind of care. It's just like, why wouldn't Princess Zelda fight her own? She's a woman. She could do anything. Women are amazing, right? So they could just do whatever they want. She's her own woman. Throw it aside and fight monsters too, duh. But they actually took the care to like, all right, she's a princess. There's an entire legion of guards that work for her. Why would she ever go out and fight stuff herself? Like her role is to be a princess. And then this is from the beginning here where they bow to her. She talks to him. This is like the small little details that go into making a great game. I love this guard at the bottom on the right hand, on her right. It's like he's looking around with his spear at the ready. Like he's protecting something precious here. He's locked in. As I walk away, a rift starts to grow, a little ominous rift growing. Kind of showing the encroaching danger that's a befalling Hyrule. And then you see the guys here. Boom, their faces are shocked. She's leading the way. Like, oh my gosh, the princess is back. We got to run and go tell somebody. People. She's flanked by guards. The entire town is here. You know, super glad she's safe. You're not injured, are you? Everyone has like concerned faces. They're happy to see her. You're sick with worry. A whole week is a long time to be missing. So Zelda's kind of the treasure, the real treasure of Hyrule. Thought you'd been stolen away like all the others. The soldiers search for you every day. Really was only Link that was able to do it. Like, princess, play with me. So like she's in a way, she's like the daughter of the entire kingdom. You know, the little girls want to play with her. Now one of those Icky's Rift opened up here too.
Yeah.
We welcome you back. They did a lot of world building around Princess Zelda to make sure like her role is still established. Please don't ever go away again, okay? This girl's super adorable. Don't go away again. We started to think we would never see you again. We search for you every single day. So everyone is super concerned about Zelda and her safety. There's our attendant Impa. Frustrated couldn't save myself. The rifts. So, like, I'm certain your return will be a great comfort to the people during these troubling times. So she has kind of a role as a political role, as kind of like a beacon for the people of Hyrule. And again, the way sort of liberalism has poisoned people's minds, I don't know if they could have this view of royalty. The way that the East still can, the way that kings are treated as princesses are treated as special people, the way nobility is treated as like sort of the greatest of the kingdom, like respected and loved. I don't know if like really hardcore liberals could do something like this anymore, because again, like they have so much hatred for like authority. It's sort of like equalism has to be everything. And you have her coming back. Everyone's super glad to see her. That's General Right, Minister Left. I mean, the names are something else. I'll see you safe as well. It's a shame that they couldn't find her. And they have the sort of father figure as the King of Hyrule. And then you have him be like super happy. They're healthy, whole, and well. He's, again, like loving father. He's sort of, again, treated as a princess. They made sure that she had that identity before they just make her a hero. That's a set off for it. So we eventually decided that the setting of this game would involve lots of large, mysterious rifts appearing in Hyrule. We had to come up with something that wasn't a monster, but something that would make a princess think, this is bad, I have to do something. A princess is a daughter of the rulers of a country, so I thought that this motivation to fight is that the whole of Hyrule is being destroyed and changed. So the rifts is going to being something that only her power can help mend. It's not necessarily like a direct confrontation with monsters, even though she has to do that. It's the fact that, she has to go in and mend these rifts. It's kind of a more fitting setting for a princess to stop. And of course, Hyrule's safety does fall under her responsibility as a noble. We also had a hard time developing a scene, and this is, again, kind of going to the character of Zelda. Hard time developing the scene in which the king is swallowed up by the rift, which is one of the princess's biggest motivations for setting out on her journey. And I love this scene, too. You have the king of Hyrule. Again, more good world building here. Like he has his minister investigate the rifts. He sends his general out to fight the monsters that are appearing. So the king's basically kind of helping, deal with the rifts. And locate those who are lost. But as you can kind of see, it'll be in vain here because there's nothing they can really do against these rifts. I love this part where he just throws Zelda away like, oh no, there's a rift. He quickly reacts. Again, like protecting his daughter. Very masculine thing to do. And or she's swallowed up by the rift as attendants try to save him. And then she has to watch him get swallowed up. This is before she has the sort of tri-rod. She's kind of useless at this point, but that's a big motivation for her, is to save her father. Yeah, because it really Link's kind of a stranger to her, and you kind of learn about who he is as the journey goes on. Right? It's very difficult to balance how much to add, and this is him talking about the lore here. Let me take a drink. It's very difficult to balance how much to add or change. At first, we were intentionally leaving any parts that might delve into Hyrule's history vague, but partway through, we couldn't find a way forward that way. So, around last summer, we decided to hold a boot camp and work out the story there. So even the story, they don't do this lightly. They have to really think about how to do it in a way that makes sense. Even there, Grezzo didn't offer any in-depth suggestions about the story at first. So I went back to the hotel. Quickly wrote a script that would work, and brought it with me the next day. Then we all contributed various elements that often occur in the Legend of Zelda series to the script. Using this method, we eventually completed the game's story. Over a few sessions, we spent 9 days at the boot camp in total, working from morning till night. So they went on a 9-day boot camp, working from morning till night to get the story correctly, to kind of flesh out the story. This is what they had to do to get it to work. Now, they did not do any of this. None of the elements of this stuff were done lightly. These days, even for us, it's not easy to touch on the lore of Legend of the Zelda series. And when you address the history of Legend of Zelda, you naturally have to be conscious of how things have been expressed in previous series. But when we think about a new game, we need to think about new developments while being mindful of the past games in the series. On top of it, because the series has been running for a long time, players are interested in its history and lore. So when we have adopted a game plot that was not in line with the other games of the series because we prioritized the gameplay, we've been told by our fans that it didn't make sense. We realized that even if the developers didn't intend to make nonsensical changes, players could interpret it otherwise. It's kind of funny where it's like, we prioritize gameplay all the time, but if we're not mindful of it, our fans will tell us that it doesn't make sense at all in Legend of Zelda. So they have to do this balancing act when they want to add in new gameplay. Like having Link, get an Uzi, just wouldn't work. Even though they think that'd be a really fun gameplay for Legend of Zelda, they still have to. They're still conscious of how the fans will react to it, so they have to really make it in line and work with the Legend of Zelda series. It's kind of funny to see him worrying about the lore here. Like, gameplay comes first, but we still gotta worry about how fans react to that kind of stuff. Designing and this is kind of talk about dungeon design here, and this kind of shows how much respect Grezzo and the bona fides they have for this company. Designing dungeons is Grezzo's specialty. Grezzo has been researching the Legend of Zelda series for a long while now through their work on remakes. As such, they suggested a series of ideas that make me think, that's a new angle. This is so interesting. Some of theirs have been playing the series since they were little, which I guess is true. Even I started playing Legend of Zelda as a kid, and 40. So it's been like 30 years since 35 years since I started playing a Legend of Zelda game. So it's been an entire generation of people that have grown up playing the game. So some of their staff have been playing the series since they were little, and I was so excited to see what kinds of ideas they had and what they thought of a Legend of Zelda dungeon should be like. And kids that literally grew up playing the game are now making the game. That's a very interesting idea. Everyone has a great respect for the series. Many of the staff love it and played the games many times over. So even now, when we're making a new top-down game in the series, we're always thinking about how we can bring the Legend of Zelda-like feeling to the game. However, we packed in so many things we wanted to do to create this Legend of Zelda-like feeling, and the map ended up being 8 times the size of Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. It was amazing. It is a pretty big map. It's not as big as, say, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom in terms of like the 3D space, but it is a large map for a 2D Zelda game, and I like it a lot. It still feels cozy, which is interesting. Even though it's a big 2D, the 2D map has a cozy feeling to it, and nothing's too far apart. And this is a picture of the map to get to the idea of the size. You can see there's a lot of elements, like, there's the church, a lot of stuff that's very similar to Tears of the Kingdom, and stuff that isn't. You got Kakariko Village, the ranch was never there, but you got spaces like Gerudo. The sort of Gerudo place was the desert, but it's not the same. You have the sort of mountain here. This mountain changed, but you also have stuff like this, which is the first temple of Link to the Past. I think this was the witch's hut, which your Dampe is at now. But it's really cool to see the size of it is amazing. Speaking of that Zelda-like feeling, creation of the sound starts later in development, and for this game, it really helped increase that feeling at the end of development. Early in development, we spent a lot of time making the game without any sound implemented, which is interesting the way they did that. The fact that sound comes in really late. Towards the end, as we started mass production of data and shifted the work to move towards the final product, the sound team came to us and said, here's what the main theme sounds like, and had us listen. And it was just like, wow, this is it. It's like you're pulled right into the world of Legend of Zelda. The moment you leave the cave and that theme starts playing, that's the first time you hear it in the game. I feel like that scene was really created to resonate with players' feelings. You don't know where it is that you've arrived, but you get the feeling that your real adventure is about to start. And here's an example. Here's when you first come out of the cave, and this kind of plays. This theme is not the original, the actual like theme, but it kind of like the first starts of it. It's like a little first they have like a little grumbling of it. It's very light, and it's kind of like a prelude to what could happen. Where you first encounter an enemy. And this is the cave where you first come out and the main theme starts to play. It's an awesome theme. I love the flute. There's something a little bit gentler about this theme than other Legend of Zelda themes, and I think it really fits. Both the artistic style of the game and the fact that Zelda's the protagonist, like a feminine protagonist, so it's a little bit softer, a little bit gentler. It's like these details make it work. They still maintain a sort of like a gentle femininity while still facing obstacles. That, again, makes that female protagonist work. It's not, Kay Vess clocking out dudes with her fists. The sound team makes a near-finished game, and while imagining how players would feel, the sound team takes the near-finished game, and while imagining how players would feel in each scene, they compose music to fit those scenes and have it play each part at exactly the right moment. I love this. In the N64 version, Zora's Domain always had a great theme, and this does too, with the harps. It just gives you that feeling of water, that lightness and fluidness. All right, I'm taking time right now just to listen to the theme when I played through it the first time. The harp, the wind instruments, all of it's just so good. The strings, I did a fantastic job. A beautiful, like, calm theme for the Zora area. And that's it for the presentation. Just an idea of just how much work went into it. It's just an awesome game so far. I haven't beaten it yet. I don't even know if I'm getting close. There's still quite a bit to do, but it's just been awesome. I just wanted to share this interview because I think it gives you a deeper appreciation of all the work that goes into the game and why the game ends up being, as good as it is. It's the work that Nintendo and this company, which, it isn't even a Nintendo company that did bulk of the work in it. I know it's a company that just has done so much work for Nintendo with Legend of Zelda that, they have that, they've put in the work, they have the bona fides to work on Legend of Zelda, and they have such respect for the franchise, franchise that again, one of the most recognizable franchises in gaming, especially in Japan, where, Nintendo is just enormous. So they treated it with such care and respect. Treated, Zelda with care and respect to make sure it's not just, hey, we got to have a woman in the game. It's like, this works. Having Zelda as protagonist works in terms of the gameplay. And they put in a lot of effort to make sure that she's still kind of treated as a princess, but has a reason to that she has to go out and fight for her kingdom. So all the elements just come together to make just a masterpiece of a game. I'm really enjoying it, and hopefully a lot of you will enjoy it too. But that's it for the presentation and the video. Thank you guys for joining me. Really appreciate it. All the chats. And please like and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Oh, and I'll be redirecting to Post Zero too, which is happening later. Goodbye. Let's see. We'll edit. We get the redirect. Should have Kyle here. Where is Kyle? Why can I not find it? I know I have him subbed, so it shouldn't mean? Why does it not show up? Give me a second. I'll find it. I'll have to go to Twitter. We shall find it. I should be. I'm surprised I haven't been tagged in this post. Did you not make a post on it? Give me a second to find this. I'll get the redirect. Why is it so hard to find your YouTube channel, Kyle? There we go. YouTube honestly sucks sometimes. The fact that it doesn't, like, I'm subbed to this guy. I'm subbed to Kyle. I'm Matovic. I don't know how to say your last name. Sorry, Kyle. But the fact that it doesn't show up as like some of my first results when I type in Kyle, I don't understand why it wouldn't do that. Like, why? Like, hey, maybe you want to find some. The fact that it's so hard to find, like, a channel you've subbed to, it is baffling to me. It's honestly baffling. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. Kyle probably doesn't. Oh, he hasn't tweeted. Okay, there we go. There we go. We got it though. Thank you, Jack. Bam. Redirect. All right, now we're leaving. See you guys later.